Hey, football peeps out there, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 13 4 key game picks. Here are the current playoff positioning standings after 12 weeks of the NFL regular season. Let's begin in the AFC. The New England Patriots currently hold the 1 seed. The Oakland Raiders now move to the 2 seed. The Baltimore Ravens are now the 3 seed. The Houston Texans are in the 4th seed. And current wild cards, the 5th seed is the Kansas City Chiefs. And the number 6 seed at the moment is the Miami Dolphins, holding that last playoff spot. And in the NFC, the Dallas Cowboys are still the number 1 seed, of course. The Seattle Seahawks are still the 2nd seed. The Detroit Lions are the 3rd seed. The Atlanta Falcons are the 4th seed. And current wild cards in the NFC, the 5th seed is the New York Giants, and the 6th seed is still the Washington Redskins. Now, last week, Oakland Raiders were the 1 seed, but because of virtue of conference record, the New England Patriots currently hold the top spot for home field advantage in the AFC. So you need to keep that in mind, even though both teams have a similar record of 9-2. Anyways, very quick thoughts from last week in week number 12. Dallas continuing to roll. It's very, very hard to see them stopping by, even though they do have a couple of more divisional games left. But Washington was really one, and they already played. They already swept Washington. I know they got to play the Giants one more time, and I think they got to yeah. They just have to play one more divisional game, and they'd have to play the Giants here. Detroit Lions are kind of a bit of a surprise, but it's kind of was not a surprise to me because they are a good team at home, and they were lucky to have a home. Of course, it was Thanksgiving last week, and they had that home game like they always do, and they are better at home than they are on the road. And let's just see what happens now as the Lions go on the road. Minnesota still struggling a bit, but they're still in the midst of things in the playoffs. They're still outside the bubble in terms of trying to grab a playoff positioning. Now, Green Bay winning got them back on track. They're also back in the hunt as they beat the Eagles. Eagles kind of hurt themselves with that loss, so the Eagles now are in danger now of falling not only just further behind in the NFC East, but possibly completely out of the playoff picture right now. So yeah, big winners last week were the Cowboys. The Lions were big winners last week. The Raiders were big winners last week. Yes, the Raiders. And how about the Kansas City and Denver game? The way that game ended on a last-second field goal that hit the upright and just went in. That was just crazy, and it was a very hard-fought game between those two teams. Probably one of another candidate I consider game of the year, even though it was a snooze fest in the first half of that game. But in the second half, it was really, really all offense. A couple of things came to mind to me last week. Now, obviously, Derek Carr hurt his pinky, which he had to wear a glove. So that injury could be a little bit of a concern if you're an Oakland Raiders fan, and I know there's plenty of them. You kind of have to worry about that pinky now. Tom Brady did kind of landed on his shoulder during a tackle, so now that's going to be a little bit of a question whether if he's performing healthy. Ron Gronkowski has a back injury, so who knows how much playing time he'll miss. Really tough to say out of week number 12, but other than that, like I said, the big teams that won last week were definitely the Cowboys, definitely the Lions, definitely the Raiders, definitely the Kansas City Chiefs to stay behind the Raiders in the AFC West. Pittsburgh was another big winner as well as they dismantled the Colts. They're trying to keep pace with the Baltimore Ravens for first place in a dismal NFC North division. And obviously, if you look at it this way, the AFC West and the NFC East are actually the most competitive divisions in the NFL. But anyways, let's now get into week 13 picks as we head down the stretch towards the playoffs here. Alright, let's begin with key game number 1. It is the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings, the Thursday night game. Dallas is a 3.5-point favorite in this one, and that is about right. Prescott went 17 of 24, 195 yards and 1 touchdown pass. Didn't really need to play all that well, as Elliott did all the work on Thanksgiving in dismantling the Redskins, and that really was a good Thanksgiving game. But I knew Dallas would kind of pull away in the fourth quarter. That was pretty obvious here. Now, Bradford for the Minnesota Vikings, 31 of 37, 224 yards in a game that Minnesota really hurt themselves on an interception that led to a game-winning field goal for Detroit, and they ended up winning. This is going to be kind of a quick pick here. I got to go with the Dallas Cowboys here. Minnesota has completely fallen off the radar here, even though they're still in the midst of things in the playoff hunt. But now they're getting a tougher part of the schedule. And keep in mind, they have to play the Green Bay Packers one more time. And if Green Bay starts getting hot, that could be a sign of trouble for Minnesota to miss the playoffs completely if they continue to struggle here. And it's just not going to get easier for Minnesota down the stretch. So I like the Dallas Cowboys in this one here, no question. There's a chance this could be a game, but I don't know if Minnesota's offense can really get their act together. Their defense has really struggled. Dallas continues to be on a roll, and why are they not and why not be heavy favorites in this one, 3.5? So that's about right. So yeah, Cowboys over the Vikings. Key game number 2, it is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are actually a 3.5-point favorite. And that is actually maybe just about right, but it wouldn't surprise me if it goes down to 3 points, maybe 2.5. Alex Smith for the Chiefs went 26 of 44, 220 yards, and 1 touchdown pass in a game that Kansas City really fought through with Denver in a very good second half against those two teams. Matt Ryan for the Falcons, 26 of 34, 269 yards, and 2 touchdown passes in a big win over the Arizona Cardinals. And it really was a big win because, you know, the teams in the NFC South, more or less the Saints and the Buccaneers, they're almost right up there to catch them. So, yeah, no question, big game for both these two teams. It's actually more bigger for the Atlanta Falcons because the Saints and the Buccaneers now are on their tail. I would say Atlanta kind of has the edge in this one here. Even though Kansas City, I mean, really, their defense really stepped up, and their defense needs to step up big against Atlanta's offensive line here. It's going to be a close game, no question about it. I expect a close game, probably a low-scoring game here. But I will pick the Atlanta Falcons here. This is a pick that's really, I'm not sure about this one because both teams are, I say, about evenly matched. Atlanta's got the better running game, though, but KC's passing is really getting up to par now. And I consider that maybe a threat for Atlanta's defense here. But I'll go with the home team here. I think the Atlanta Falcons will squeak out, let me say that again, squeak out a victory against Kansas City. Atlanta knows that the Buccaneers and the Saints are right on them, so this is a game that Atlanta really needs to show up here. KC, I know they're battling now to try to keep pace with the Raiders, and that will be very interesting to see if KC can really get to Oakland down the stretch. But I just think Atlanta kind of does have an edge here. Their running game, I think, will really help out Matt Ryan a lot. And that's why I'm going to pick the Atlanta Falcons here. The Falcons over the Chiefs. Key game number 3, the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. For the first time, I'm actually talking about the Miami Dolphins here. Ryan Tannehill, 20 of 30, 285 yards, 3 touchdown passes in a game that really should not have been that close. Keep in mind, a lot of questions now are riding on Miami's defense. Now, currently, they're holding on to a playoff spot. They're on a winning streak right now. But really, their defense has a lot of questions right now. They really gave up points against a very roary 49ers team that really, the Dolphins should have blown them out. And yet, the 49ers actually made it a game. So that comes to mind in questions right now for the Dolphins here. But keep in mind, Baltimore really hasn't been playing that well either. And yet, they're clinging on to first place here. Flacco went 25 of 36, 234 yards, and 1 touchdown pass in a game that they barely beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, then again, the Bengals were banged up, so that was another thing to keep in mind here. Both teams are evenly matched here. 3.5 points for Baltimore is kind of high. Don't be surprised if that number goes down a little bit there. I expect it, but 3.5 is what I'll stick with for now. Another game I'm not sure of. Miami's trying to keep pace in the playoff hunt. They know Denver is right behind them in terms of the last playoff spot. The Baltimore Ravens are trying to stay in first place. They know Pittsburgh's right behind them. So really, tough pick here. But I think I will go with the Baltimore Ravens here. Miami, I have a lot of questions on Miami's defense, even though they really made a stance in that last play to stop Kaepernick from scoring a touchdown. But really, let's just see when it comes to Baltimore's offense here. Expect a tight game, a very close and tight game all the way between these two teams. But I think Baltimore pulls it out in the end here in another very close game, even though Miami's getting better. But I'll go with the Ravens here. It's not a sure pick here, but I'm going to pick the home team in this one here. Raiders, 3.5 points. I'm going to stick with that. Ravens over the Dolphins. And finally, key game number 4. It is the New York Giants at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Giants, keep in mind, they really they're kind of a roller coaster here. You don't know what to expect with them, even though they're on a good winning streak right now, and they're trying to keep pace with the Dallas Cowboys. They're the only team right now in the NFC East that's close to the Cowboys here. But they did kind of struggle in the first half against the Browns when really they shouldn't have. You know, and the Browns are not a very good team, and yet they struggled against them in the first half. Eli Manning went 15 of 27, 194 yards and 3 touchdown passes, which really the Giants opened it up in the second half, and they were able to dismantle the Browns in that. Ben Roethlisberger, coming off a big Thanksgiving win over the Colts here, went 14 of 20, 221 yards and 3 touchdown passes here. The Steelers are a 6-point favorite in this one. Don't be surprised if that number gets much lower here, probably maybe to 5 points. Pittsburgh is a heavy favorite in this one. And I'm going to go with the Steelers here. But keep in mind, I expect a very close game here. The Giants are pretty good in the second half. They've been a good second half team this season. And I expect this game to be pretty close. But I think Pittsburgh will win in a squeaker here. Another game, this is not a sure pick here. Pittsburgh's trying to keep pace to Baltimore. And the Giants are trying to stay on the Cowboys' tail. So this is a big game for both these teams. But I think Pittsburgh gets the edge here. Their running game is a tad better than the Giants. But even though when it comes to passing, both teams are evenly matched here. Defense-wise, Pittsburgh's defense is just a tad bit better than the Giants here. And this is why I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one here. The Steelers over the Giants. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 13. For all my Week 13 picks, including all the NFL lines for that week, go to the sportblog.blogspot.com. Of course, the video goes up first, and all of the blog post and writing goes up second right after the video. I will see you guys next week when I talk about my picks for week number 14. Until then, take care and enjoy your football weekend.